Hello, this is Heather Morse, and this is my data overview for Mount Zion Middle School. The purpose of this data overview is to provide a comprehensive analysis of the school's current strengths and weaknesses based on CRCT data. Please note that the data discussed in this presentation is for school years starting 2009 through the 2013-14 school year. There is no current data for the school year 2014-15. Demographic information. This chart represents the enrollment figures for Mount Zion Middle School. As you can see, 2013-14 school year, there were 252 students in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And you also notice that the enrollment has been decreasing over the last 3 or 4 years. This is the diversity makeup of Mount Zion Middle School. You will notice that it is a predominantly white school with a section of multiracial, small section of Hispanics, and a small section of blacks. This is a graph representing the students receiving special services. The majority of the student population is served in the general education setting. Gifted is 6% of the population, special education is 11%, and the ESOL is 2%. This data represents the change over time of the students receiving free and reduced lunch. As you'll notice, there has been a significant increase in the number of students that are on the free and reduced lunch. This data represents the number of students that have missed 15 or more school days. As you can see, there has been a significant decline between the 2012-13 school year and the 2013-14 school year. So demographic summary. It's a predominantly white school with a high percentage of free and reduced lunch. Special education accounts for 11%, and the attendance rate has been improving over the last few years. Now we're going to review CRCT data, and this data is a longitudinal data of over the last 5 years. This chart represents the data for CRCT reading. As you will notice, the scores have been consistently high in the reading, but in 2008-2009 school year, all grade levels were below 90%, but by the 2013-14 school year, all grade levels were above 90%. This chart represents the language arts data. Again, you will notice that there has been an increase over time, and again in the 2008-2009 school year, all the scores percentage of passing was below the 90 percentile mark, but by 2013-14 over 94-95% of the students in the grade levels were meeting the standards for CRCT language arts. This data represents the CRCT math, and as you can see, there have been significant gains in the math scores over the last 5 and 6 years. In the 2008-2009, all grade levels were below 80% passage rate, but by the 2013-14 school year, all grade levels were above 85% passage rate. CRCT Science, you can see that these scores have been consistently low, with the exception of the 7th grade data, and that has stayed pretty high compared to the other grades, but the 2013-14 school year saw significant gains in test scores. Social Studies is a fairly similar picture. The scores have been low over the last 5 years, but in 2013-14, again, they met significant gains. Strengths revealed by the data. You will notice overall CRCT scores have increased over the last few years. For the 2013-14 school year, 6th grade CRCT scores increased in reading, math, science, and social studies. For the 2014-15 school year, 7th grade CRCT scores increased in reading, ELA, math, and social studies. For 2013-14, 8th grade CRCT scores increased in ELA, math, science, and social studies. In the 2013-14 school year, there were significant initiatives that were initiated that we believe are the reason for such significant gains in this year. The first was data-driven instruction by using weekly SAFE data to adjust instruction. SAFE simply stands for short and frequent evaluations. Teachers were required to give regular assessments and then adjust instruction accordingly. In addition, we rearranged our special education staff and put special education teachers in the math, science, and social studies classrooms and put the support services in the language arts classroom. The school versus district and state for 2013-2014 CRCT. As you can see, the blue represents the school data, and as you'll notice, the school outperformed the district and the state in all content areas on the 2013-2014 CRCT. Areas of concern. Although the data shows significant gains and successes for the 2013-2014 school year, there are two areas of concern, and this is particularly revealed when you begin examining the subgroup data for science and for social studies. This chart represents the subgroup data of the percent of students meeting or exceeding the CRCT in science for the three different grade levels. As you can see, the white population is very close to the all-student population, which would make sense considering it is 75% of the student population. And you will see that there are several groups that are not performing well in science. And so we're going to take and look at the grade levels to look at this a little bit more. This is the 6th grade CRCT passage rates broken down by the subgroup percentages. If you'll notice, interestingly, the Hispanic and the multiracial groups actually were the highest performing, and there was a significant gap for the Black population and for the student with disability population. 7th grade science, the whites and the Hispanics were high performing. The Black population and the students with disabilities were significantly lower, and even the multiracial was a good bit lower on this one as well. The 8th grade science scores, if you'll notice, the percent of passing is pretty even. All subgroups have at least 80% passage rate. But if you'll notice, the Black population on this one, interestingly, had the highest percentage. But there's still, the Hispanics were lower on this one, and the students with disability was still low on this one as well. Looking at the social studies data, you can also note that there are some significant achievement gaps between different subgroups on this. Again, this is all 3 grade levels, but we're going to break it down and look at each grade level. This is the 6th grade social studies, and if you'll notice, interestingly, the Hispanic and the multiracial population have the highest percentage of passing, and even the Blacks and the whites is about even. Students with disabilities was significantly lower though. 7th grade data, the Hispanics and the whites were the high performing. The Black and the students with disabilities were significant achievement gaps between the highest performing and these two subgroups. The 8th grade data for this one, the Blacks again are performing very high, but on this one again the Hispanics and the students with disability are performing lower. So this data reveals that there are gaps in the data. There are significant achievement gaps in certain grade levels in subgroups in the science and social studies portions of the CRCT. It indicates that there is a need to address these achievement gaps. So an analysis needs to be completed to determine further causes of that achievement gap, and then strategies implemented to reduce those achievement gaps. Again, thank you for watching this presentation,